Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour on Saga 960. I want to introduce you to really quite a interesting, incredibly well-educated individual who I've noticed make a bunch of really quite provocative comments on social media, and so I wanted to check in with her. She goes by the name Nika Domi, but her real name is Dominika Jazwick. She's known professionally as Nika Domi. She's an authority in the realm of social psychology. I want to ask her a little bit about what social psychology is, but also spirituality. She is a researcher, author, speaker, and personal coach. She's publishing a book in this year, 2021, Person to Person, it's called, with a foreword by a New York Times bestselling author. She came to Canada over 25 years ago as a teenager, forced to start a new life, and one that was very different from what she had in the past. She's traveled back and forth repeatedly between Europe and Canada, and it's ended up shaping a perspective on politics. And she's made numerous different political comments recently, and so I want to ask her a little bit about that as well, but also history and the interconnectedness of diverse cultures. Get this. She holds an honors degree in the study of social psychology and a minor in religious studies from McMaster University. She also holds a diploma in executive administration and business management, and she's got an abundance of knowledge on a bunch of different issues that we're going to talk about tonight. Nika, how are you? Welcome to our show.
I am so honored to be here. It's really a pleasure. And I am actually very curious of which of these comments that I have made on social media. So that'll be fun. Let's unpack that. And we have lots to talk about. So
you are incredibly well educated. Why all of these different diplomas and degrees?
It's a bit of an educational mess that I thought was not really my calling, and my path became a little bit convoluted with so many different diplomas, right? But now I realize that it was all shaping me to be who I am right now and to know what I know today. So it was all sort of like the pieces of the puzzle that now I see fit together. Before I didn't know. So I started with, as you mentioned, I did immigrate to Canada as a 12-year-old. So it was not a fun thing to do for me because I was just starting to be cool in my neighborhood. I was just starting to be a teenager and have cool friends. And all of a sudden I get ripped out of that very close-knit, fun community and put on a plane with my parents and came to Canada to meet the rest of our family. So then I ended up in the elementary school here, being actually bullied and not knowing English.
Why? Because of the language?
I'm not sure what it was. I think it's just something that happens naturally because I was different, and maybe people not feared me, but I'm almost wanting to use the word fear, but it wasn't. It was just that newness. They weren't used to having new kids in the school. The school was very close knit. It was a small school. So
did that bullying impact you? Did it
did
mold you into somebody different?
I think that it impacted me at the time of my elementary school and high school because it made me want to keep going back to Poland. So thanks to my grandma who made that possible, she said, anytime you want to come, just come on back. So every single summer, two months of the summer holidays, I was spending back in Poland. And I think that's what really drove me to all these educational experiences because I felt like I was doing things. For example, I went to my first college experience at Mohawk College. I took small business management only because, I did like business, but it was the shortest course there. And it allowed me to go to Poland as soon as possible with a diploma from Canada. So that was a little bit foolish of me, I thought at the time, to be guided by, different things other than my purpose in education. So I did the small business management course at Mohawk College. Then I moved back to Poland. Didn't work out. I came back. I thought, what do I do? I'll go back to school. So I went back to school and I took office executive administration also at Mohawk College in Hamilton. it was something that was kind of preparing me to own my own business and to do my own business as well. I was really good with language. So even though I had English as my second language, somehow I developed it quite well, and I was good in writing.
But then you did social psychology. Why leave business and go into, what is social psychology?
Yes. So my now, for years later, fast forward, and a couple trips to Poland in between, I decided that I need to go back to school. And I think I saw a few of your other guests who I kind of resonated with, because that's also what they were saying. It's almost as if you're this lifetime learner and this lifetime student. So I'm kind of that type of person that is just almost addicted to learning. And I decided to go back to school for social psychology. Now, social psychology, as you ask, it is not the type of psychology that you learn, about the neurons and the neurotransmitters in the mind, and the more of a scientific aspect of the mind. So that would be the neuroscience and behavior type of courses. So psychology in the social aspect is, how do people connect together, and how do they shape their world, and how does the world shape them in return? So how do these pieces of human emotions, human actions, human behaviors, human thoughts and experiences come together to create this thing that we all live in together, which is the society and the world. So the micro level and the macro level interactions are really super connected, and it's like almost as if an investigator, if you have this kind of an investigator mind, you would love this, because of how cool it really is and how much you get to find out about your own mind that you really never ever known before, but your mind really directs your whole life. So it's
Your mind directs your whole life.
It does, because when you think about it, what can we really do without the mind, right? The mind is something that really directs every step we make, every word we speak, every emotion, and it's really hit me how little we know about our own mind. When I went to study social psychology at McMaster, I spent 5 years there doing that program, and also the minor in religious studies, which connects so perfectly. And some people might think, well, how does that connect?
My gosh, you did 5 years of social psychology and religious studies, and this was after a while you had done your previous diplomas at Mohawk. Fascinating.
Yes.
We're going to take a break. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back more with Nika Domi in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio Hour, Saga Night 60. Having an interesting conversation with Nika Domi. Her real name is Dominique Jaswick, but she's known professionally as Nika Domi. She's a researcher, an author, a speaker, and a personal coach, and she's publishing a book called Person to Person this year in 2021. But we were just talking, Nika, about social psychology, and what you were saying is it's a study of how people connect with each other and with the world around them.
Exactly. So how do we connect the dots of human minds? Because really we're interacting with people's minds all day. And the thing that you really have to understand about this is that people don't always do what they say, and they don't always say what they do. They don't always think how they behave. So people could behave in ways that are maybe not always aligned with their opinions or beliefs. For example, there's a concept of groupthink, where in organizations, people will just agree at a meeting with others, but not necessarily will they agree within them. So within, they might be thinking, oh, I really don't think this is right, and I don't think this should be done, but they will still raise their hand and vote yes for whatever it is, because they're scared of maybe some repercussions that might come with having their own opinion that is different from the group.
So what's the secret of connecting with people, do you think?
It is literally understanding, having more of an understanding, and coming from more of an understanding rather than reaction. So people like to react right away, and people most of the time like to already, as we're speaking, even now as we're speaking, you're asking me a question, but I'm already in my head automatically. It's so hard to control it, thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to say? Right. So you might sometimes find that you're having conversations with people, but they're really not listening. They just want to talk to you. And that's interesting, because I learned that in the cosmetics business that I was in. I've been a commission salesperson for at least 10 years. I've worked for many companies. So this was before I took my social psychology studies. I worked at Hudson's Bay. I worked at Sears. I've seen all kinds of things that really social psychology could fix and save businesses from failure. And I've learned in in this cosmetics business that many people came into the store, and this is mostly women, to have a conversation, to have a connection with the sales lady or the salespeople there, to have someone to talk to, someone who's known them for years. And often they wouldn't even need the products they were buying. They were just buying because
What? You're telling me that people go to buy cosmetics, not to buy the cosmetics, just to have a conversation with the sales lady?
I'm sure so many people who've worked in cosmetics are laughing right now. Yes, yes.
It's interesting because I heard a story from someone just the other day that they were so looking forward to the nail salons opening. And I said, why? And he said, well, I so want to go get my nails done. And I said, like, you can do your own nails. And they said, well, it's all about having the quiet and someone to talk to and just relaxing and no noise from the kids and just sitting back and having the nails done. So they're not going to get their nails done. They're just going for the talk and the quiet.
Yes, and also there was a study done, or more studies. I did this research on aging. And what I found is that hair salons, for example, they have a lot of elderly clients, and especially elderly women who like to come in for their blowout once a week and get that nice, nice hairstyle. And they like to go see their usual hairdresser over and over again and meet with the same ladies in the place and chat. And often it's just something so profound in their life that when it's removed from their life, it really causes a lot of, psychological damage in a way, because it's almost like they treat it like a family, like a treat, like a getaway, like their mini, their mini vacation where they can just go to the hair salon and connect with other people, because maybe they're sitting at home all day alone. Like, for example, I have a 90-year-old grandma, and she is a super social person. And right now, it's just the worst thing for her because she
Can't
loves
socialize.
people. Yeah, and it's so hard because most of her friends are not on this planet anymore, and and all she has is us to talk to, and obviously family can get busy, and it could run out of things to talk about. So I can see how someone like her could really look forward to that little escape to the hair.
So what you're saying is your grandma and you and a whole bunch of ladies that go to cosmetics, and all of us want to reach out and touch someone, want that interaction. But is that all that social psychology is about?
No, social psychology is really about anything and everything, just because, as I said, our mind directs our life. So knowing social psychology could help you win more. You know how people say, oh, I'm not lucky. It could help you do so many things if you know it. For example, if people who say that they're not very lucky and they never win, and they maybe are always troubled in their life, and they run into all these issues, and they think, oh my goodness, why me again? There is explanations to that on this social psychology level. So for example, there was a gentleman who did a study, and he gave two groups of people, very random chosen people, and one group considered themselves quite lucky in their life. The other group considered themselves not very lucky in their life. And what happened was he gave them two magazines, and he placed a clue inside the magazine, which was huge. It was big. You couldn't miss it. And it said, if you see this right now, if you're reading this, walk up to the experimenter and you will receive $500 or whatever the prize was. So what he's found, the results of this study, is that the people in that group who considered themselves more lucky in their life were the ones who actually were more likely to get this prize and notice that clue in the newspaper, while the other people who didn't consider themselves so lucky were still flipping through and wondering, okay, what do I need to do here?
So if you say, I never win the lotto, you'll never win the lotto. But if you say, I win the lotto, the chances are you'll win the lotto?
According to the study, yes. But the lotto is a tough one. It's kind of like saying, oh, you're a psychic, you should win the lotto. Why aren't you, if you're so psychic, right? So usually people say that to psychics, I've noticed. It's like, oh, why, if they're a psychic, why aren't they rich yet? So that's a tricky one with the winnings. But things like maybe meeting the right person, or for example, when I had the idea to write the book, it took a split-second decision for me to drive from, say, Hamilton to Toronto for an event that I got invited to that same day, and I didn't even think I was going to make it. And I thought, forget it, I don't want to go to this event. But then something told me, no, go and run to this event. And I thought, you know what, why would I miss it? I'll just go. And I ran, and it took, from the time that I found out about this event to the time when I actually was there, it was literally a matter of 2 hours. And that was a split-second decision that I made. And that's when I found out about writing a book and about a book course that I've taken with the New York Times bestselling author, as you mentioned before, and who helped with the process and actually just getting started, mostly because it just made that decision. So right now, I would have probably not even started writing a book yet if it hadn't been for that meeting. Event.
But then when you were doing the social psychology, you also did religious studies. Why'd you do that, and what'd you learn there?
Yes.
Did you want to become a priest or something?
A high priestess, maybe. I've always had this.
A nun. You wanted to become a nun?
No. Now, religious studies is not what it sounds like. So it's not that you go and you become someone of, a representative of a religion. Religious studies is more of a social psychological study, more of an anthropology study, because you're learning about societies and how people relate in societies, and how do they use religion, for example. How do they how do these people have these kind of beliefs, and then other types of people have different kind of religious beliefs, and how do they shape their societies? And how does the society shape them to be religious, right? Because we found clues of religion since the very, very early humans, as they were apparently, burying the dead and doing some little ritual over them. So there's been always these spiritual tendencies within humans, and it's really interesting to learn the depth of where do they come from, how do they shape us, how do they shape and limit or enhance our life. And that is what religious studies in the university taught me. The other thing where you become a priest or a nun or so, that is probably like a divinity college that you could attend to become a priest.
Yep.
It's more of a social study rather than a study for religion. But I've really developed that because I've always been interested in spirituality. I was born in a place in Poland that is known for some very mystical places and mountains and crystal mountains and things with a very rich history. So looking into that history since I was a child has connected me and progressed me into actually being interested in how spirituality plays a role in our life. And so I thought that a minor in religious studies would be really cool, and it connected well to the social psychology, despite it not seeming to, right?
Okay, and then you started getting involved in tarot astrology and something called dowsing to assist individuals in figuring out what stands in the way of happiness and progress.
Yes.
Where does that fit in?
So many things, right? I think it all really connects, but it's just not enough to describe in our short program right now. That's why I invite everybody to read my book, and that will really clarify things for you in a way that is very realistic and very logical, I think. So how does the tarot, I found out about the tarot, which is the cards. There's many varieties of cards, which you use to ask a question, and then you pull a card, and the card is supposed to give you some sort of an answer.
Right.
So when I met this lady at one time, it was an event, and she was doing free readings at a store as a little promotion. So I sat down with her out of curiosity, and when she started pulling these cards and telling me, she's never met me before in my life, she started telling me things about me that I thought, like, okay, how do you know this? And tell me more, like right now. I need to know this and this and this and this. And everything she was telling me was really accurate about me, and about what I'm doing in my life, and what path I should be on, maybe, rather than the one I'm on now. And it really clarified a lot of things.
Did she change your path?
No, she didn't. But I realized that I was maybe heading in the wrong direction. And because she was reading these cards, what it sparked within me was my intuition at that time started opening up, because she caused it in a way, that type of frequency she's resonated, and it caused me to start thinking from different perspectives, to see myself from a different perspective, because we get really stuck in the way that we see ourselves. And sometimes we wonder, why am I hitting a brick wall in this area of my life all the time? And it really takes someone else to get you to reshift your focus, and your kind of see yourself as an observer of yourself rather than yourself, right? So if you see yourself as observing you, step outside of you for a moment and see, okay, how do I behave? Almost as if you were to record yourself on video, through the day, and then watch it later. How many things would you pick out? Oh my God, I shouldn't be doing this. Or I say things like this all the time. Or maybe I say like too many times. There's many things we would like to change. And there's small things that really get in the way of our moving ahead in life. So it could be something so simple. I mean, you go to a job interview, and if you keep saying like, maybe I've done this already in this interview quite often, but it's something that we have a hard time controlling. And something so simple could really cost you that job, because you could just seem, maybe not as professional, or so on. So that's what I've noticed in university. A lot of students, when they put up their hand and they were answering questions, they would say like so many times that you almost wanted them to sit down quickly and
No
just
question.
yeah. So and they didn't realize it when they were doing it, because they were thinking of themselves as themselves. So they thought that they were focused on sounding smart in their opinion, or their question, or how they, what they had to contribute. But they didn't realize how many times they said like in the matter of 1 minute. And it really causes people not to want to listen, and they kind of block you out. So what are the ways to really help with communicating, which is really huge right now, especially with communicating online?
All the time. It's changed our world, no question.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you've had like just an unbelievably interesting career. And so, you were in cosmetics, you were in fashion, you had a business education from Mohawk. You then went into social psychology and religious studies. And now you're actually in wealth management and providing financial advice.
Well, and not necessarily financial advice, because we're not allowed to say it like this. I provide people with some knowledge of my own experiences. So what happened,
Hold it. We're going to take a break for some messages and come back and find out about what advice Nika Domi is providing from a wealth financial standpoint. Stay with us.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio over Saga 960. Having an interesting conversation, introducing you to Nika Domi, who seems like she's got just an incredibly interesting background. She's been in fashion. She's been in cosmetics. She's got a business diploma, an executive business diploma from Mohawk College. But then after a bunch of years, I guess she went through some issues and some rethinking, and she decided to go back to university. And she did a degree in social psychology and another in religious studies. And then she's also got involved in a bunch of the sort of the mystic arts and astrology and things like that. And then recently, she's got involved in understanding and coaching in regards to what is the meaning of wealth. And she talks about wealth as happiness and prosperity and abundance of possessions or riches, coming from the word well for well-being and the analogy of health. She says that life is a university and you are here to learn and grow in order to reach the ultimate state of mastery. And she says the way to reach the state of mastery is in three different parts of your life: physical, mental, and spiritual. And together they equal the total of your wealth. Nika, how'd you get involved in wealth?
Interestingly enough, these are very, as we were saying before, for whoever was listening earlier, I was talking about the psychology behind winning, and it really comes down to quick decisions. So
quick decisions.
Quick decisions. Most
you have to be decisive in life.
Yes, and that's something people really struggle with, is making the right decisions. And that's something that learning social psychology really helps with. And it's just probably the easiest thing to use, the easiest information to use to really become a better decision maker. So something that happened that I took quick, responded very quickly to certain things. And I ended up jumping into the stock market when the legalization of cannabis was happening in Canada. So I just asked no questions. Somebody came to me and said, you know what, I'm doing these stocks. This is awesome. You have to really go open your account and check it out. So I thought, sounds amazing. I'm right on it. So next day I opened the account and I jumped in to the deep end feet first. And I really don't regret it, because I think it was just the most amazing way to learn. It was the hard way. And maybe I'm just addicted to learning the hard way, as it seems, but it shaped me in the way that I have, jumped into the stocks with zero education in the stock market. I've always told myself that I'm bad in math. And my whole life I've been kind of living thinking that I'm bad in math. And it turns out I'm maybe not as bad. But I think what it really is with the stock market is the intuition part. And that comes back to our wellness and the meaning of the word wealth, because the word wealth, the etymology of that word comes from a word that just means wellness, but holistic wellness. So your spiritual wellness, your physical wellness, and your mental wellness all has to connect. You can't
So what do you do for your spiritual wellness?
So I do meditation. I'm sure that's probably the most popular thing that I do. But the cards, the tarot cards, they really, if you set aside the fear of them, because fear is like a troll that blocks, those video games or those films for children where there was always a troll kind of guarding the gems and the prizes. If you stop fearing the troll, behind the troll is your prize, is your diamonds, is your wealth, right? So the tarot cards, sometimes they scare people away, but what they really are is like a GPS for your life. So if you think of it like a GPS, if you go on the road and you're driving through, different cities, maybe you might not know, you don't take your GPS, you're going to struggle a little bit, right?
So the tarot cards, you believe are the GPS. Do you read tarot cards for people now?
So I do it for others and I do it for myself. And doing it for myself really helped me develop my spirit within, my mastery within, because they opened me to different perspectives. So just seeing things from a completely different way that I would have never thought about. I'm trying to think of an example I could give you. The easiest example is probably with relationships. So you meet, somebody who's single. You meet someone new online on, I don't know, Plenty of Fish or something, right? And now this is gonna probably throw off a lot of potential, but I do pull a card if I meet somebody. Let's say, I don't know, business partners. If you have a deal,
you meet someone online and you pull a card to find out whether you should go on a date with them. Seriously?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. So you really gain a lot from that, because one time, for example, I pulled the devil card. And many people are scared of the devil. Oh no, the devil, right? But the devil card described that person, and what it described was somebody who's a liar, somebody who's not very honest, or somebody that has addictions or things like that in their life. So when I pulled that card, it was funny because this is how energy works. The phone rang, and it was that person. Just as I pulled that card, kind of as like a confirmation from the universe that it's
So
it's true.
you
And it
meditate
turned out that
and
they had a
you
girlfriend. They weren't single. So they weren't single.
you meditate and you do um, tarot card reading for your spiritual. What do you do for your mental well-being?
Sorry?
That's what you do for your spiritual well-being. What do you do for your mental well-being?
The mental very well connects to the spiritual, and the mental well-being came a lot from my study in social psychology. Because when I found out that, for example, there's a halo effect. So if you meet somebody and they're very funny, let's say they're very funny, you automatically, your mind will guide you to think that that person is now maybe a nice person, or maybe they're just so smart, or maybe they're just such a good person, maybe they're kind. You're spilling over these traits. So the halo effect, for example, they use that in commercials where they will, place an expert, let's say, or an actor, and they're selling the car. So now you're thinking, oh, this actor is so good looking, they're honest. Your mind, you're thinking they're good looking, but your mind is kind of telling you that they're also honest, just because those traits are very much in that same basket.
Right.
So
it sounds like the mental is intuition.
yes, so that's how learning these theories has really helped me, just in such a simple way, because once you know, you can't unknow. So once you know that a halo effect exists, now you're not going to be able to look at a commercial anymore and think, oh, this actor is so sweet, so beautiful, I trust them when they tell me that this car is really good for me, right? On this commercial.
So the three areas that you talk about us having self-mastery in are spiritual, mental, and physical. We've talked about spiritual and mental. What about physical?
And that is something that I'm really needing to catch up on. I've been a little spoiled because I've never really had issues with weight. I used to be a skateboarder as a teenager when I came to Canada. So I think since those kind of sports that I did at that time, I maintained this this way of maybe metabolism. And so I don't eat meat. So it's something that also has almost maybe caused me not to have to worry about my weight. And I just, in all of this learning and all of this energy, putting out all this mental energy, I barely have the energy to do the physical exercise. So, but I do love to, enjoy the nature. And that is something that, going for walks and things like that. But I do need to honestly catch up.
Spend some more time on it. And you're going to be publishing this new book, Person to Person. And it's going to be about interactions that have been going through some of the strangest times.
Exactly.
And it's social psychology. Tell us a little bit about what you want to tell us in the book.
So the book, it will, it's a little, I'm a little sneaky in the book. I'll tell the secret to your listeners. It is a book about social interactions. So it's called Person to Person. And it's very interesting how I came up with this name, because I started writing this book 2 years ago. So I didn't know that person to person, the spreading and all that, what we are dealing with right now, person to person interactions have taken a hit. So when I was coming up with the title for the book, I didn't know anything about what was going to happen in the world. It was just an intuitive way to name. So it will help people and draw people in by the name of the book, Person to Person, who are interested in elevating their game, their social skills, being more, more desirable in social settings, more respected, and gain more social capital, which is a huge wealth. But what I'm doing throughout the book is helping them to get to know their inner self better. So they will have no choice but to connect and to peel off these layers and to connect to their deepest self. There is a quote in I forget who said it, but I'm looking for the face I had when the world was made. So this is a quote that really maybe even describes the entirety of my book, is when it will take you on this journey to discover the face you had when the world was made, when your world was made, when you were born, without all these layers of socialization and effects of socialization that have, kind of stuck onto you. As you're reading my book, you're going to be peeling them off one by one, and they're already, they may already be obsolete, they may already be old, and you might want to peel them off, but sometimes we hold on to these layers because they're comfort, like a blanket on top of us, right? So they're comforting to us, and change is the hardest thing that people have a hard time with.
I want to find out the face that I had when the world was made.
I will tell you the author of this quote later, but I cannot think
of it. What a fascinating, that's an interesting idea. And, when you think about authenticity or finding out who you are or self-awareness, that's an interesting way of putting it. We're chatting tonight with Nika Domi. We're going to take a break and come back with some concluding comments in just a minute. Stay with us. Welcome back to the Brian Crombie Radio, our Saga 960. We've been having an interesting chat tonight with Nika Domi, who is someone that studied social psychology and religious studies and business administration. She's been in cosmetics, she's been in fashion, and she's now in coaching and financial services. And she's going to be launching a book this year called Person to Person, which sounds kind of interesting. She's posted a lot on social psychology issues. One recent one was about social identity theory, that your self-concept is associated with group membership and group behavior, which is you are who you hang around with, sort of the peer impact. But she's also commented a lot about politics. And so, Nika, with all of your interesting interests, why are you also politically interested?
Because as I mentioned previously, I was born in Poland in 1980. And if you look that up, anybody who's not familiar with what happened at that time, it was the Cold War happening, and it was the fall of communism in Poland, which was, when I was born, it was martial law outside, it was lockdown, it was tanks on the streets, and empty stores, empty hospitals, and here is me trying to come into this world. So I think that sparked this natural inclination towards knowing what is happening in the world and what is happening in politics, and being more aware of that, because a lot of people are really not aware. And I think it hit them last year and this year, how little they knew about politics and how little they were involved. I see a lot more involvement in politics these days. Just because maybe people were a little bit more forced to look into these things and not just look at it from, their little micro level perspective of their daily life. They've realized that there is macro level connections all over the world that are shaping our daily life, and it's really important to know. So
how do you think we're doing?
Sorry?
How do you think we're doing?
I think that it's both good and bad. So the good thing is that people are learning more about politics and are more involved. The bad thing is, as you've mentioned my last post about social identity being tied by your group involvement, and group identity is connected to your personal identity of who you are. The polarization of people, the fitting them into boxes and not allowing them out is something that we really need to be careful with, because as I mentioned in my book, I see it like this. Politics should be like a buffet. We go into the buffet, a restaurant that has all kinds of choices for us. And imagine the greeting person tells you can only eat from this side of the room. And you're like, well, but the fries and the pizzas on that side, can I grab a little bit? So we can't, it doesn't work. You think
we're stuck in these political parties and we should be able to take a little bit of policies from all of them?
Yes, I think it should be issue-based rather than political party-based, because there are many people who, for example, are supportive of a certain issue that may not be on the side of the people that they are interacting with daily, for example, that maybe their
I think
family.
that's the problem. I think you're quite right that I think we've become very polarized, and too often it's sort of you got to support everything the liberals say or the Democrats say or the Republicans say or the conservatives say, and you can't be
Yes.
believing what you want to believe. So I think that's true.
Let's get
Nika,
the-
this has been a fascinating conversation. If people want to get your book, how do they do that?
So my book is now in the editing stage, so it's almost done. It will be printed. I am giving it about a month or so before I am able to hold it in my hand finally. And they can go on nikadomi.com. So that's NIKADOMI.com. And you will find out everything on my website. You can contact me. I'm on Instagram the most. And no, I'm not related to Ty Domi.
Thank you so much for joining us. That's Nika Domi, who's just fascinating business, social psychology, religious studies, cosmetics, fashion, mystic, tarot card reading, and now publishing a book, Person to Person. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yes, join me on my website, and everybody that will contact me can get a free card reading. Just contact me. Thank you so much.
Sounds good. I want one. That's our show for tonight, everyone. Thank you so much. Good night, everybody.
Good night.